Welcome to the Build to Scale podcast. I'm Helene Benshar, your host, and today we have a special guest joining us, Miles Hishier, co-founder and senior partner of HighView, a Google Cloud partner and IT consulting firm. Miles, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you? Of
Doing well, Rim. Thanks for having me on.
course, happy to have you. Thank you for making the time to join me and to chat on the podcast.
Absolutely. Look forward to getting into some of our topics today.
So, first of all, where are you calling from?
I am calling from the Central California area, a town called San Luis Obispo, California, equidistant between LA and San Francisco. For those that don't know, definitely come visit. It's a great small town.
Nice, nice. I'm actually going to California for the holidays, but in LA.
Nice. Come on up north.
Yeah,
There's
maybe.
less crowds up here.
I know. I think if we had a car, we would probably explore the north, but family for the holidays. So tell me a little bit more about yourself. I'd love to know more about your background and your journey leading up to your role today.
Thank you. Yeah, Miles Hishier, and as Rim mentioned, co-founder and senior partner at HighView Solutions. HighView is a Google Cloud partner and IT consulting firm. We started the company in 2016, late 2016, and the main goal was working with small and medium-sized corporations to move to Google Workspace, also called Google Apps for Work. At that time, there was tens of thousands of companies that were running legacy email servers on premise. Microsoft had yet to launch their 365 like fully cloud solution, and Google offered this great suite of tools which all of us love, Google Docs and Gmail, and it was very natural for many companies to want to use that technology in the workplace. But in order to do it, it's a huge transition for a company to go through. Switching from old Microsoft ways of working and getting people out of Outlook is incredibly painful. We developed a specialty around ripping out that old infrastructure and putting in Google Workspace. And that kind of helped us scale as a business. So Google allows us to actually resell Google Cloud services and make a margin on that. And then we also bundle it with our own professional services like data migration, like product training, organizational change management, helping IT teams create secure environments, et cetera. So that's kind of how we started as a company. Now, fast forward to heading into 2025, we've shifted more towards working with hundreds and hundreds of existing companies that have been running on Google Workspace for years and are now interested in upgrading editions, or they want to expand and use add-on products, or they're very, very interested in Google's AI productivity tool, Gemini. And so a lot of our work now across our 550 or so clients and those IT teams is helping them define what their Google Workspace environment looks like and what their Google Cloud strategy is for 2025.
Very cool. And is there something that made you decide to get started? Like how did you get started with that initial idea of offering these services? Did you see some kind of opportunity? Would love to know a little bit more about that story.
Yeah, it's kind of a random niche, right? Like you like started a business around data migration, helping companies get rid of Microsoft. Okay, so I started my career in San Francisco at a company called Square, which makes payment solutions for small businesses. And I learned how to talk and sell and learned about the millions of small businesses across America. And I found during my 5+ years at Square that even when I left in 2016, many small and medium-sized companies we're still struggling to figure out like the basics of technology for their business. They're especially if you look at industries like construction, et cetera, they had the bare bones in place. And so when I wanted to create my own company, I saw an opportunity to help these small and medium sized companies lay a solid foundation. And Google Workspace is one of those tool sets that's just like a fundamental building block. It's email, it's calendar, it's file storage, it's collaborative documents, it's Google Meet for chatting. So it's sort of like the infrastructure layer, I think, of many companies. And that thesis proved very, very true as we hit COVID. Because that, as all of us remember, like March 2020, like the whole world went remote overnight. And very, very quickly, we realized, oh, we've been training companies for years on how to work from anywhere across any device. And now it's like very prescient that we allow companies to really embrace that and help them embrace that. So that was like a big acceleration trend through the COVID years.
Yeah, and that's definitely a common kind of journey for a lot of companies that we speak with in the tech space. COVID's had a serious impact on the acceleration of digital transformation and companies adopting tools at a faster speed. Do you feel like it's slowed down now that we're in 2024 out of curiosity, or do you feel like it's remained fairly stable?
I think it's returned to more like a normal technology adoption pace that we saw in like 2018, 2019. I think there's a lot of interest around AI tools, which I'll talk about in a second. But in general, we're not seeing as large of shifts as we were during those COVID years.
That makes sense. And yeah, AI is where the focus is at right now. So definitely worth exploring during this discussion. So yeah, what are some big trends you're seeing in the industry?
Yeah, so I think one of the main things I want to talk about is like staffing, remote work, and how like a lot of our clients are hiring and growing their business. So one of the things we all learned from again from COVID is you can run even a larger company in a remote model. Now that does present its own challenges, but I think it was an education to many of us that it's um, totally possible. And I think that's opened up a couple large trends and started a couple large trends that we're seeing and we're actually leaning into heavily as a company. One, if you look at like many startups today, we're finding that startup teams are quite a bit smaller and more distributed. Many of our startup customers, they might have a international presence as well as a presence locally. And then productivity tools to help maybe augment versus hiring additional headcount is another trend. So just to drill into those specifically, hiring international staff. So my advice to many of our clients and every small business owner I meet is you should really think about hiring someone internationally. There's often times, especially for entrepreneurs and mid-size and small companies in smaller areas like my town, San Luis Obispo, there's a limited talent pool that you have access to outside of metropolitan areas. But if you can embrace a mindset of working remotely, you now have a global talent pool and you could oftentimes find the right skill set for the job. And as you're aware, like running your business, there's a lot of jobs and a lot of things that need to get done, especially at a small and medium sized business, where it's not cleanly organized into a 40-hour week full time position yet. It's like, oh, we have all these tasks that need to get done, but we don't have budget yet for like a full time hire for this. So founders and owners and small teams end up wearing multiple hats and working nights and weekends to do the billing and follow up with receivables. My main advice to entrepreneurs is look for international contractors to start. You can get a great employee for probably 80% less than a US equivalent. And you could hire them as a contractor to fill in a lot of those small needs for your small and medium sized business. So that's kind of my thesis. In practice, I've seen one of our clients, and so I actually run a company called Hire with Miles, Hire, and that originated out of many of our clients at Highview Solutions asking, "Hey, how do I hire internationally? Like you guys have succeeded in doing this. How do I go about finding good quality staff? Because I've looked on Upwork, I've tried posting jobs on LinkedIn, but it's just takes too much time to filter through all the noise." And so I saw an opportunity to create like a small recruitment agency. It's a very simple model. We basically do all the work of finding great talent for you, and if you decide to hire a candidate, you pay us like a percentage of the first year salary. So classic recruitment agency model. But what that has allowed us to do is now helping these small businesses like find that great international staff and make those hires. I'm gonna pause there. I'm sure there are some questions. I know I'm kind of just going through stuff. So
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's obviously a huge opportunity that's available that you kind of were smart enough to grab, right? Because a lot of business owners have a company that's too small to really hire full-time roles in the country, which is obviously a big expense, but they don't have enough knowledge to hire abroad. And there's also risks, right, in terms of or challenges. I'll give you a few examples that came up to my mind is it's the time difference, right? Is that being handled? Um, are there any language barriers, right? That could be another potential challenge. And, how do they make sure that these people are qualified? I guess these are kind of some early thoughts around, potential challenges, but how do you address those out of curiosity?
Yes. Yeah. So let me talk about the time difference. So I recruit exclusively from Latin America. I'm a firm believer in the alignment of time zones with the US is great. You can find incredible staff in the Philippines and have them work US hours, but I don't like the idea of having someone working for me or working for one of my clients and working a graveyard shift. It just never sat well with me. So I've always recruited from Latin America. So that's taking care of the time difference. In regards to the language barrier, some people are aware of this, but Latin America has a massive call center industry. Basically, in the early 2000s, US multinational companies started moving tens of thousands of call center jobs to Latin America. Now, fast forward 25 years, there's a massive talent pool of hundreds of thousands of call center workers that have spoken English 8 hours a day, many of them for like 5 to 15 years. If you speak a different language than your primary language for 5 to 8 hours a day for a decade, you are going to be totally fluent. And so I recruit from call centers. It's actually a requirement. I only put candidates forward that have call center backgrounds. And it's because many of the clients that I work for and I'm trying to staff clients for are filling positions where they want to be collaborative with those staff members. They're not just trying to delegate tasks. They want to be able to work through problems. They want to be able to assign like a strategy and see if that person come up with something. And English is just essential in order for that to work. So that's how we've solved the language barrier. And then in regards to qualifications, we focus primarily right now on customer service roles. So that could encompass account management, any type of like, yeah, management of existing customers, any type of customer support, and then pre-sale motions as well. All those have fit very, very well with the Latin America talent pool. And going back, I'd mentioned this before, but we do have one client, a fast-growing, well-funded startup based in San Francisco. They have an incredible product, and they're onboarding customers like crazy, but their support was just falling by the wayside. They had goals of trying to automate a lot of the support, but they were just inundated. And I got in touch with them. And over the course of 3 months, we built them a team of 50 international staff members. And so now they have this incredible company that has a well-oiled support machine. Because it turns out if you hire people that have a background in our support professionals, they're going to bring a lot of incredible knowledge to the workplace. And I actually argue in 2025, heading into 2025, you're better suited for any customer support type job to recruit in Latin America just from a skill set perspective. Many people in the US just don't literally have the right skill set of understanding how to handle scaled support via email and chat, etc. So that's just some thoughts on the 3 points you raised.
That's great. It makes perfect sense. I'm wondering, what's your perspective on the role of AI being able to maybe fulfill on some of these tasks versus having a like talent offshore filling in a role that is a little bit more catered to problem solving and being client facing and such. Do you see these two working together to help lower hiring costs for companies?
I do. And I think I could use like an analogy to kind of explain my thesis on how AI is going to transform customer service. So back in like the 70s in NASA, they had people that were experts in math and they called them the computers. They were literally computing and doing calculations. And over time, those individuals ended up taking on higher function roles and became engineers and took on other skill sets. And they delegated a lot of that computational work to calculators and actual computers. I think what's going to happen for this huge swath of call center industry experts is a lot of them are going to get more proficient and they're going to develop a lot deeper skill sets and they're going to become experts at using these AI tools. And so the model I'm predicting is not replacing that level one, like customer support level, which is like where we're staffing a lot of customer support reps today, but actually elevating all of them. So I could see going back to the client example I used where they hired 50 staff in a few months. I could see AI in a few years coming in, and those 50 staff members become elevated more into like a level 2 or a level 3, like more defined specialized skill set areas around product support. And then that first line of support is handled by AI. But because those individuals have that expertise in customer service, it's not like they're all of a sudden going to get automated away and then there's going to be someone in the US, because that person is not going to be able to properly do L2, L3 support if they didn't do L1. And they're not going to be good at managing the model that's handling that first layer without having been in the trenches doing it. So I think it's a very optimistic view. It's more focused on augmentation versus replacement. But I think that theory is going to play out.
Absolutely. That makes sense. I wouldn't be surprised if that becomes reality and probably a short amount of times. We're doing some work with some AI agents companies, and they can definitely handle more than we would think they would, just from a customer service standpoint. So I wanted to ask you the question on how you're seeing, you know, AI playing a role, working with these, offshore talent and seeing how that can, create more efficiencies for companies. But yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So another trend I'll mention in regards to AI that we're hearing a lot from customers. So first is the rise of shadow AI in the workplace. So this is something that's specific to my work at Highview, but shadow IT is basically products that employees are using where they've just gone on and signed up with a company credit card or their own personal credit card, but they're using that service in service of their daily work. And maybe they're using it to generate a work product at work. So an example would be a free ChatGPT subscription. Over time, IT at large companies hates shadow IT because they don't have control over who's using what. And that is a huge concern, I think, for many IT managers. And I think there's going to be a trend around in the future, I think in the next probably 2 to 3 years, companies trying to consolidate their approved AI tool usage to like a certain list of tools. So being a Google partner, we sell Gemini for Workspace, and we can see many companies in a few years saying, hey, you actually can't use ChatGPT. You can't use these other tools that you want. We're going to give you Gemini. It does 80% of what all these other tools do. Like, use it or feel free to leave the company. And I feel like that is going to go that direction. It also allows companies to maintain costs on how they're spending in AI. So that's one trend I'll mention.
Yeah, and it makes sense. And it reminds me of something that happened in the past when I was in corporate when Zoom became popular. And I remember we were using Teams internally, but then we started using Zoom and we had the service providers that we were working with that really prioritized Zoom. So we all had it on our computer. And then IT got mad at us and we were actually forced to remove Zoom from all of our computers. It was because of a security breach, but I think it goes back to what you're saying in terms of, IT is more strict on the types of other tools that are not necessarily approved by the company that are being used. And I think AI tools, there's definitely more and more of them. So that's definitely a
Yeah.
challenge that I'm sure a lot of IT teams are facing.
Yeah. And that's a big concern for like the IT teams and IT management going up into the executive suite. As we talk to like chief information officers or like heads of IT at larger companies, there's also a more persistent concern around becoming extremely reliant on certain AI technologies. We're currently, if you think about the AI in the workplace, like tool set adoption curve, we're very early. So we're at this phase where companies are spending billions of dollars to get these products out into the market. They're charging almost nothing for them and just taking huge losses in order to drive user adoption. And so, I think of ChatGPT and OpenAI as a great example of this. Like the fact that you could pay $20 a month for ChatGPT, it's incredible. I think if you actually like had to pay for how much resources you're consuming, many of us would have a bill that's like $900 a month, And I don't think people realize that from a cost perspective. I think OpenAI spent $7 billion last year just on compute. It's interesting because if it's a classic strategy that every big software company's pursued, like lower prices, drive user adoption, And then once you get ingrained, then you could raise prices. And Google, I saw this firsthand. I helped contribute to this with Google Workspace when we started selling G Suite back in 2016. Licenses were $12 a license, enterprise licenses were 20. Prices have more than doubled since then. And it's just like a natural path. So there's a big concern, I think, from leadership around becoming too reliant on certain AI tools, and then turn around in 3 or 4 years and have those companies raise prices 3, 4, 5, 600%. You're kind of stuck. And so I think at a leadership level, there will be companies hesitant to make big investments in AI, and that those, especially the ones that are thin margin businesses, that have to cost control in order to maintain their profitability.
Right. And this makes me think, maybe a bit of a dramatic question, but, we hear a lot right now about, using AI and the risk of not using AI and being left behind, right? When it comes to, companies growing, creating efficiencies with their operations and such, there's a lot of resistance for some companies, but there's also, very optimistic people that are saying that if as a company founder, if you're not using AI, you're losing and you will be left behind as time goes on. So, do you feel like companies that are going to be more strict around investing in AI are more likely to be left behind? Do you feel like, I know it's a little dark of a question, but I think it's worth asking yourselves.
Actually don't. I don't. I actually strongly disagree with that. I think it's just like a new set of tools available for a company to use. And for some companies, that will be a propellant and an accelerant. Like they have a fire going, they throw AI into it, and it's going to, take off. But I think for many other companies across America, across a bunch of different industries, AI is not going to have that significant of an impact. Maybe there'll be some optimizations and some benefits to their costs, but I don't think it will be to a point where if they don't embrace AI, they'll be left behind, quote unquote. So yeah, I kind of view it as like a net new opportunity area, that can excel companies, but it's not like a requirement. Yeah.
Yeah, perspectives have been very different from conversation to conversation when it comes to AI. So it's interesting to hear yours. I was just going to ask you next, where do you see your business maybe evolving in the next 3 to 5 years, whether that's new solutions or hire with Miles?
Yeah, so hire with Miles is a big focus for me heading into 2025. I've had just a lot of companies reach out with interest in growing their international staff. And it seems like there's a huge appetite for small and medium sized companies to work with knowledgeable recruiters that have trusted talent networks in Latin America. And that is going to be a huge focus for me personally, in 2025. High view on the IT side, we are heavily focused on like the AI strategy with Gemini and helping organizations upgrade their workspace editions and provide quality service to our existing customers. And so that's the high view part. Right.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Miles. I appreciate your time today. If anybody wants to learn more about your company, get in touch with you, what's the best way to reach you?
Yes. So hire, HIRE, hirewithmiles.com. And once again, I'll find you high quality customer service staff in Latin America for your business. Great.
Well, thank you again, Miles. Have an amazing rest of your day. And it was such a pleasure talking to you today. Hopefully, stay in touch.